Hi, I'm Jeanne Fiorini. Thanks for being here at the Tarot Tips. Today's video is going to be in response to an email that I got from a subscriber who is a professional reader who has an ongoing practice. And she sent in this question. I'm going to read it so that I get it verbatim how she asked it. She said that she defines her practice as a tool for self-growth and doesn't really want to use the tarot to either use or make predictions. And her question is there a way to give a non-predictive reading while still using the info in the cards, that is to say the cards that are in the future position or anything that deals with something that is yet to come? So how do I use the information that's in the cards without betraying my ethics? So this, first of all, is a great question because it's really hard to avoid the future when we're looking at tarot cards. It's hard to not address that at all. So then, essentially the question that she has here is, how do I keep in line with a tool for self-growth without making a prediction? So this is important for a couple of reasons. For me, mainly because we, as readers, I think always want to put the power in the hands of the client. Always want to make them feel or recognize that what they do, how they act, what choices they make are up to them. So one of the best ways to start to achieve this, even in a subtle way, is to have them pull the cards. Because essentially what this is doing is saying there's some part of you that is not only responsible for what you receive in a reading, but also that there's some part of you that knows what you might need to hear today about this issue. That's a whole other topic for another video, but we'll just move on from there. So again, keeping the responsibility and the choice in the hands of the client. So if a person or if a reader decides that they totally want to avoid the responsibility of telling somebody what's going to happen, you can phrase questions or use the cards with queries such as this, and I wrote them down to again to maintain clarity here. So questions such as, what can help me make the best decision for myself? Draw a card or two for that. So guiding principles as I'm moving forward. Along that same line, what do I need to remember as I move forward in my life? The idea here being for the best and highest possible outcome. Okay, so more like guiding cards rather than X, Y, and Z is going to happen. So that's for the person who really wants to avoid any kind of predictive interpretations of the cards that come up on the table. Something that I use regularly with people, just to make clear about what it is that my function is to say to them something like, look, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just translating the cards that you pulled for yourself. This is maybe a most likely outcome, but, things are not written in stone. Kind of another reason or function I could say to use the cards for keeping the power in the hands of the client, but still looking at possible outcomes in the future, is the choice method that some of you may have seen in my Tarot Spreads and Layouts book. And so what we would do here would be to say, if I let's use the example of somebody staying with their partner. If I decide to stay with my partner, what's it most likely to look like? Draw a few cards for that. If I decide to leave my partner, let's pull a couple of cards for that. Let's just see what that might look like. And so then we can look at those two options and say, essentially a lot of times readings boil down to, or choices boil down to, what's the thing I can live with? What's, not that, one is highly more desirable than another. Maybe it isn't. Maybe we're in a situation where, it's a little half and half. There's good things about this option. There's good things about that option. Maybe there's even a third option. That's another thing to kind of keep in mind when you're talking about the future. what other possible input might I need besides what I already have that might be helpful to the situation. Okay, so feeding the information chain so that we can make a better choice for ourselves. So this really in some ways boils down to who's responsible for the information, but we also run into the issue of time. What is time? How does that evolve? And I have a little visual aid that I wanted to share with you. So many of us have been taught, in high school physics or whatever, that time runs from point A to point B, and that all the things in time are cause and effect, that A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, and that there's essentially metaphorically a straight line between where we are and where we're going. But as you move through life, you understand, and quantum physics really reinforces the idea or the fact that time really doesn't work like that, and events don't really happen in that A leads to B leads to C kind of way. What we can more expect, and this is important because we're reading cards and we are dealing with what is the most likely outcome, what can people expect, how can I help somebody move forward in their life, is that yes, in the present moment, these things are all tied together in a way that maybe is directly related. But as we go through time, things change, things start to loosen up, different factors come into play. There are many possible, okay, you get the idea here, a little ragged of a display or a visual aid, but that as we move through time, other options come in, different paths get taken with all of these different pieces of reality that is tied together here. But as we move into the, quote, future, different possible outcomes, all these different threads have the potential to take a different path. Not even to mention the fact that there are other threads acting on us. We don't work in a vacuum. So we have this kind of concept of time that we have to address as readers, that time is fluid, we all have choice, things around us have choice and are in constant motion. So first of all, thank you very much to this subscriber for this question. I think it's a really good and useful thing for anybody who's reading cards to consider. What's my role as a reader in terms of how defined am I going to be about how I express my outcomes? A lot of times I'll use percentages. I might say to somebody, well, I'd give situation X an 80% chance. Sometimes we really get the sense, that could go either way, 50-50. It isn't your responsibility to come up with an outcome. It's your responsibility as the reader to take the information, get your best sense of what that's trying to describe, and hopefully give your client useful information or ways to deal with whatever comes their way and whatever choices they make. Hope that's helpful. Thanks a lot for your tuning in, and we'll see you next time.